Okay, so we saw what p-hacking could be, and one of these ways that we just described was that you try something, and you pick the trials that give you the favorable results, and put everything else under the carpet. So every time you don't see an effect, you hide it away, and every time you see it, you publish it uh, with fanfares and sirens. So other forms of p-hacking are also so dependent. So this is what we would call selective reporting of results, but we could also do selective reporting of dependent variables. Treatment arms. So we don't say that, oh, there were actually 15 different conditions in this study, but we only report the two that showed a significant difference. Or we can pick and choose participants. So, oh, these guys didn't show the effect, so they're probably wrong in some way. So we just throw them out the analysis. And yeah, this is not good. Not good practice. Other forms are rounding p-values down. So generously, so you get a p-value of 0.59, and you round it up to 0.5, for example. People really do that. And harking, we'll talk about that in a moment. Optional stopping or snooping is looking at your data in the midst of data collection, and then based on and running the analysis, and based on whether you see something you like or not, you stop the trial or continue. And optional starting is one theory that was going around at one point about how them produced those results of extrasensory perception and precognition. So this was about like figuring out whether you start the study based on whether your first participants actually show a very strong effect. So but those p-values that we mentioned, there is a lot of confusion around this topic. So what a p-value is, that when you run a statistical test so you have two, so for example, a difference in two means, and you want to know whether that difference is attributable to chance or not. So you run this statistical test. What you get out of the statistical test is a test statistic. So it's a number. It could be a t-value or an f-value, but it's a number. So when you run a test, it spits out a value. And so p-value is the probability of that value that you get out of the test if your null hypothesis is true and model assumptions are okay in the very long run. So if you would infinitely repeat those trials that you did, you would, or those statistical tests that you did, you would end up having rarer test statistics, p-value percentage of time. It's not the probability of your null hypothesis being true. So it's not the probability that your null hypothesis is true if the data is what it is. it's also not the probability of false conclusion. So if you have a p-value of 0.01, it doesn't mean there's only 1% chance that you're wrong. It is not the probability that you would, if you would run the study over and over again, you would get a significant p-value, and so forth. And there are a lot of these confusions going around. And the Nick Brown is a very interesting person who's been developing different tests and methods around this sort of data detective work and bad practice in research. But so I asked around in Twitter, like, what should people know about p-values, and he says that yeah, the best thing you can say is that p-values don't mean what most people, including most people who will be judging your work in the future, think they mean. Sorry. Well, I hope we can do better. There's a funny side story to this. So Statistics Finland used to have a false definition of statistical significance, and then me and a friend Kaisa, we sort of harassed them for a bit, and they failed to actually do anything about it. But then they finally revised the definition, and yeah, so they end up not giving a definition at all. So they're just talking about statistical significance as a central concept. Oh, well. This is an interesting paper. If you're interested in the topic, it might be curious, because it sort of goes through these different misunderstandings of what hypothesis testing is about. And in this paper, they found that there is this big misunderstanding that the p-value specifies the probability of a successful replication, and they call this the replication delusion. And they show that this misunderstanding existed among 1 in 5 faculty teaching statistics in psychology, and 40% of professors and lecturers, and 60% of 66 2/3 of the students. And there's a lot of other stuff in this paper that's interesting too, but you might want to check it out if you're curious. Yeah, so researchers are also very prone to these misunderstandings, and it's no wonder, because textbooks really fail to explain this thing correctly. No, I'll give in the end I'll give a couple of links that might actually help you to do better. And we'll continue on this in the next video.